In 1982, Michael Jackson released Thriller, and popular music never recovered. Before this album, the industry followed rules that most people never questioned. Radio formats were rigid. Artists were sorted into lanes. Pop here, R&B there, rock somewhere else. Music videos existed, but they were disposable. Albums mattered, but singles mattered more. Fame was powerful, but rarely global in a shared, simultaneous way. Even the biggest artists worked within those limits. And then Michael Jackson's Thriller arrived, and quietly dismantled all of them. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't luck. And it wasn't just great songs. Thriller changed music forever, because it changed how music functioned, how it was created, marketed, visualized, performed, and remembered. To understand why, you have to understand what existed before it. In the early 1980s, albums typically peaked quickly, and faded. Music television was still experimental. MTV launched in 1981, and played a narrow rotation of artists. Global reach was limited by distribution, language barriers, and broadcast infrastructure. Artists could be huge, but rarely everywhere at once. Even Michael Jackson, coming off the success of Off the Wall on Epic Records, hadn't escaped those boundaries. Off the Wall was critically acclaimed and commercially successful, but it lived primarily within R&B and pop spaces. Grammy Awards recognition was limited. Industry gatekeepers still viewed black artists through constrained categories. Michael Jackson noticed. He didn't talk about it publicly, but those close to him later confirmed that the response to Off the Wall bothered him deeply, not because he felt slighted, but because he believed the album had done more than the industry was willing to admit. He didn't want another successful release. He wanted to remove debate entirely. Michael Jackson approached Thriller differently from the start. He wasn't thinking like a singer, he was thinking like an architect. He studied radio playlists across formats. He paid attention to what translated internationally. He observed how people watched television, not just how they listened to music. He believed that sound alone was no longer enough. An album had to be experienced. When he reunited with producer Quincy Jones at Westlake Recording Studios, their agreement was simple but brutal. Nothing stayed unless it served a purpose. Songs were rewritten, keys were changed, tempos were adjusted, entire tracks were cut if they didn't feel essential. There was no filler, no indulgence. Every second had to earn its place. Rod Temperton, who had written Rock With You for Off the Wall, was brought back to write 3 songs, including the title track, originally called Starlight. Grammy-winning engineer Bruce Swedian shaped the album's revolutionary sound, while Steve Lukather and members of Toto provided guitar work across multiple tracks. One of Thriller's most radical moves was ignoring genre loyalty altogether. Billie Jean didn't sound like contemporary pop. Beat It fused rock guitar with R&B rhythm. Human Nature floated with minimalism and space. Thriller blended funk with cinematic horror. Instead of choosing a lane, the album moved through all of them, smoothly. This wasn't crossover, it was integration. Radio programmers didn't know how to categorize it, which meant they had to play it anyway. The first single was actually The Girl Is Mine, a duet with Paul McCartney that represented Michael Jackson's crossover strategy, bringing together the biggest names in pop and rock to signal his intentions. While many albums of the era were dense and layered, Thriller often relied on restraint. Billie Jean is a masterclass in tension. The bass line doesn't resolve. The rhythm never relaxes. The song refuses emotional closure. That choice was intentional. Michael Jackson wanted listeners to feel unease, to stay engaged without knowing why. It was a psychological approach to pop music that hadn't been widely used before. The song didn't explode. It haunted. MTV initially resisted playing Billie Jean. This wasn't subtle. The network's early programming rarely included black artists unless they fit narrow expectations. Once the video aired, the audience reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Viewers didn't change the channel. They stayed. MTV adjusted its rotation permanently. This wasn't symbolic progress. It was forced by demand, and it changed television music culture forever. Michael Jackson understood something crucial before most of the industry did. Visuals were no longer accessories. They were part of the art. The Billie Jean video used light, shadow, and movement as storytelling devices. The sidewalk illuminated under Michael Jackson's steps, not realistically but symbolically. His presence altered the environment. Music videos stopped being promotional clips. They became short films. Beat It carried a message that was often misunderstood. It wasn't about violence, it was about avoiding it. Michael Jackson wanted to reach young people living around real conflict. He cast actual rival gang members in the video, then choreographed them into unity. The song's aggression was deliberate, but its resolution was non-violent. The inclusion of Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo shocked the industry. Quincy Jones called Van Halen directly, who thought it was a prank, and hung up 4 times. Rock and pop were not supposed to meet like that. After Beat It, they did. In 1983, Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean at Motown 25, paying tribute to Berry Gordy and the Motown Records legacy that launched the Jackson 5. The performance itself wasn't planned as history, but when he stepped back and executed the moonwalk, everything shifted. Dance in pop music was no longer decorative, it became central. Artists were no longer judged solely on vocals. Stage presence, movement, and visual command became essential. The standard had changed in seconds. When Thriller debuted as a nearly 14-minute short film, the industry didn't know how to process it. Michael Jackson hired John Landis, director of An American Werewolf in London, and convinced horror legend Vincent Price to record the iconic spoken word section. It had a narrative, dialogue, a beginning, middle, and end. Choreography functioned as plot. Michael Jackson invested his own money to complete it, believing the future of music depended on ambition, not budgets. After Thriller, videos could no longer be simple. Audiences expected spectacle. Before Thriller, albums had cycles. After Thriller, they had eras. Singles were spaced strategically. Visuals reinforced themes. Tours extended narratives. Public appearances became part of a cohesive story. Modern album rollouts trace directly back to this model. Thriller proved that global attention could still be unified. People across continents experienced the same songs, videos, and performances at the same time. Language barriers disappeared. Movement became universal. Michael Jackson wasn't just famous. He was recognizable everywhere. Thriller became the best-selling album in history, not because of one hit, but sustained momentum. Each single revived interest in the album itself. Each video expanded the audience. Each performance reset attention. The Billboard Hot 100 charts reflected this dominance week after week. The industry was forced to rethink what success meant. After Thriller, the argument that black artists couldn't dominate pop markets collapsed. Michael Jackson didn't challenge the system with speeches. He dismantled it with numbers. Artists tried to follow the Thriller blueprint. Big videos, genre blending, cinematic ambition. Few succeeded, because Thriller wasn't just about resources. It was about discipline, timing, and vision. Innovation raised expectations to unsustainable levels. Michael Jackson had changed the industry, and now had to compete against his own shadow. Every release afterward was measured against Thriller, not against peers. That pressure never eased. Fashion adapted. Advertising changed pacing. Film borrowed choreography language. Pop culture accelerated. Thriller reshaped rhythm itself. Media is now fragmented. Attention is divided. Global moments are rare. The conditions that allowed Thriller to dominate no longer exist. That doesn't diminish it, it explains it. Before Thriller, artists adjusted to the industry. After Michael Jackson's Thriller, the industry adjusted to the artist. That is the difference. Thriller didn't just succeed, it redefined possibility. It changed how albums were built, how artists were seen, how visuals mattered, how genres interacted, and how global culture could move together. It wasn't just a moment, it was a transformation. And music has never fully returned to what it was before.